Well, welcome everyone. Welcome. My name's Roseanne Hoffland. I am the Director of Community Engagement for Levitt at the Falls, and I think we're going to get started with our panel discussion. So if you want to grab any last little snacks in the back and have a seat wherever you're comfortable, we're gonna start this great discussion tonight. I want to extend a warm welcome to you all on behalf of the Levitt team. We are busy right now prepping for 50 free concerts, which we'll be announcing the beginning of May, and we'll begin May 31st. So it'll be here before we know it, which we're super excited about. I want to welcome everybody who's come out here today, but I also want to welcome the folks who are joining us online through our webinar with Arts South Dakota across the state. So hi, everybody. Happy to have both in-person and remote attendance tonight. Want to make sure that I give a special shout out to Startup Sioux Falls, who have been a partner to us in offering this space to be able to offer these great programs this spring. So if you know anybody at Startup Sioux Falls, give them a big thank you and consider joining if you're building a new business or have a small business and are looking for a space. And then our other partner tonight is Arts South Dakota. We've got great Arts South Dakota representation in the house tonight. And Andrew Reinartz, who is the Director of Community Engagement for Arts South Dakota, is going to say a little bit about their mission and about for our webinar attendees tonight.
Well, thanks, Roseanne. Thanks to you all for being here. My name is Andrew Reinartz. I'm the Community Development Director with Arts South Dakota. And thanks to all of our online audience watching from around the state tonight. We're really glad that we could partner with the Levitt to be able to broadcast this out to the rest of the state. And for those of you online on the camera, I will be your voice remotely. So please ask any questions during the course of the session through the Q&A function on Zoom. And I will relay those to the panel in a little while once we get rolling. Arts South Dakota, we're your statewide arts service organization. We advocate, connect, and educate. I wanted to say a quick thank you to the Bush Foundation and the South Dakota Arts Council, whose funding makes this webinar series possible. Importantly, we're really excited. This June 7th and 8th, back in Sioux Falls, will be the State Arts Conference. So we really hope that all of you will consider joining artists, arts organizations. It's really a chance for all of us across the state to get together. As we all know, there's a lot of unbelievable creative work happening in every corner of the state, but even in Sioux Falls, let alone around the state, we're often isolated from each other, and it's events like these, it's events like the State Arts Conference that really bring us together and allow us to at least commiserate, if not develop really great ideas and partnerships and collaborations. And then also for all of you, especially in person, we definitely encourage you to consider signing up for our mailing list that's on the registration table. We have a weekly arts updates email that has arts events, but it also has opportunities, new grants that open up. Events like this are often featured, so you kind of are aware of everything going on around the state. So with that, I will turn it back over to Roseanne, and thank you all again so much for being here tonight, and thanks to Roseanne and Jake and everyone at the Levitt for making this an easy collaboration.
Thank you, Andrew. All right, so if you have not been to a Music Maker Mixer before, welcome. I hope that you will introduce yourself to a friend or somebody new before you leave tonight. The whole goal of these events is for us to be able to connect, to collaborate, to get some new ideas and inspiration, and to hear from some really wonderful musical voices within our community. So tonight, we always start with a musical moment, which I am going to turn over for one last song to Miss Lexi McGee, who has been providing us with that beautiful social time music tonight. So let's give her a warm welcome and our attention.
Thank you, guys. It's nice to be here. It's good to meet all of you guys. I'm going to sing an original called Highway Trains, and I hope you guys like it and enjoy tonight. It's going to be, thank you, everybody, for being here. I sing a lot of country, so if you can hear that come out, I hope you love it. 'Cause I wanna drive all night and take random turns with you, and I wanna run real wild and leaning for a kiss or two. I wanna take your hand in mine, I wanna feel everything tonight. I wanna drive all night and never 'Cause into the night, it feels just like this moment was made for you and I. 'Cause highway trains are made for chasing. It's in the way your heart is racing. And midnight moons are made for laying underneath at night. And your heart was made for staying with mine. With mine. 'Cause I wanna lay right by your side as the sun sets in. And I wanna make you smile just like you were a kid again. I wanna make you mine tonight. Tell me your secrets, I'll give you my time. I wanna lay right by your side as the sun sets in. 'Cause into the night, it feels just like this moment was made for you and I. Oh, hey, 'cause highway trains are made for chasing. It's in the way your heart is racing. And midnight moons are made for laying underneath at night. And your heart was made for staying with mine. With mine. 'Cause I wanna drive all night and take random turns with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lexi. And if you need to hear more from the delightful Miss Lexi McGee, you can hear her next. She'll be playing at PAVE on Wednesday, April 10th from 7 to 9 on the patio. So go check her out there. Thank you, Lexi. All right. And then I would love to welcome our panelists to the stage for the discussion tonight. So tonight we are going to be chatting about building your musical brand. And we are lucky to have with us three esteemed and wonderful musicians in different, diverse sort of genres who have worked all over the region, all over the country, all over the world, but are all sort of master branders in their own respective areas. So we're really lucky to have their expertise. Come on out and join me, Andrea, Vaney, and Shaun. Welcome. So just to set the scene a little bit, I won't do a really giant intro for all of these folks because they are all really accomplished musicians in their own fields, and I know we'll be talking a little bit about that tonight. But just as a brief introduction, Andrea Ross is a singer and a musical theater symphonic vocalist who has performed literally all around the United States, all around the UK. She was discovered by Andrew Lloyd Webber early in her career, for those of you who are in musical theater. And he co-produced her album, her debut album, and which went to what, 42 on the UK charts? Mm-hmm. Yes, I did my research. So we're so pleased to have Andrea, and she is now a Sioux Falls resident. She calls this home. So happy to have her. So Vaney Hariri, who is next to her, is also known as V the Noble One of the founding fathers of hip hop here in the Midwest. Has performed on our Levitt stage with the Knights Tempo in our opening season here at the Levitt, and is also the founder of Think 3D, which is a local company here that's really interested in building intentional culture within workforces and teams, and is also just a wonderful leadership coach through Leaders of Tomorrow and other efforts. Also sits on the Levitt at the Falls board of directors among his many leadership hats. So please help me in welcoming Vaney. And then Shaun Johnson is with us as well. Shaun is no stranger to the Levitt stage. He has performed with 2 different ensembles on our stage. Shaun is also a Sioux Falls resident, an Emmy winner, a member of Tonic Sol-fa, which he is still an active member of, which I believe they've sold 2 million independent albums, give or take. In addition to that, he also leads and is the founder of the Shaun Johnson Big Band Experience, which brings a unique pop sound to a wonderful, talented big band, all featuring wonderful Midwestern musicians. So please help me welcome these awesome panelists. Yeah. So I'm going to lead a few questions tonight, and then we will open it up at the end for questions from the audience as well as from the online audience. So be thinking, if we don't cover anything, what you're hoping to get from these folks tonight. To set the conversation a little bit, we're going to be talking about branding tonight. And branding and marketing, I think, can sometimes be things that we talk about in a similar lens, but they're a slightly different topic area. So branding, if you think about it, is really the why. The value, the identity, the image, the voice that you have as an artist. When we think about marketing, we're thinking more about the how, the techniques of the posters or the social media posts, or how are you communicating that brand. So as we were talking tonight, we were I asked the panelists to think about that process of how they've developed their brand, what some of the strategies they are thinking about moving forward are, and that's sort of the frame of what we're going to be talking about tonight, is branding. So with that in mind, I wanted to start with a question of, what is your why, or how might you describe your musical brand?
I got started in the musical theater world, which kind of has its own whole umbrella of why, but it really taught me about storytelling and connection, and that's something that I make sure to infuse in any performance I do, is kind of cracking open that vulnerability and connecting with people. I think is the best part of art, in my opinion, to get to be vulnerable. Kind of allows everyone else to have the freedom to express themselves too, is the hope. So that's always the first thing I think about when I'm singing. I think about the lyrics, I think about the story of it and the arc of it, and I try to bring that to every performance that I do. And to bring this, or especially here now, I love getting to bring this Broadway, musical theater, orchestral sound and mood to any stage. And I try to do that no matter what town it is, whether they have access to, musical theater shows coming through, or if they've seen a bunch, to kind of bring that tone to wherever I go has been sort of the most important thing to me.
For me, when I think about what's my why, I think the why of most artists is expression. How do we get to contribute to the world and share our thoughts and feelings? And one of the things you're going to experience from me today is that I have a lot to say. And so for me, music is a vehicle to be able to do that we have a commentary about the world, what is happening, what is not happening, and our experience in it. That's a big thing for me. As far as it pertains to brand, the why explains more so my relationship with music. My relationship with branding is more about the who. And I work hard to be a person that is authentically me. And so for me, the brand is more of a vehicle to communicate who I am so that who people expect is consistent with who they will get. So that's kind of my approach to branding.
You couldn't have said it better. I agree with both of them. I don't know that I thought about the why originally, but I think growing up, maybe some of you are the same in whatever business you do, I literally thought I have to sing in some way. So I don't really care. I do care now, but I didn't care when I was 4. I didn't care if really people would understand what I was trying to do or how much I love to sing. But I think if you have a passion, then you're like, you've got to do this. So I set out not to be a singer and still doing it after all these years like you guys, but I just set out to say, I've got to add my voice. I have to sing. I have to do something with this passion, whatever your passion is. It doesn't have to be singing, of course. So I think my why in the branding was I just have to. And hopefully, it's such a cliche, but hopefully you find a tribe of people that say, oh, I like what that person is doing.
I think 2 million is a little more than a tribe, but what?
I'm taking the mic back. I'm going to now hand it over here to the lovely woman on your right.
Thank you. We got trouble coming. So I'm curious to build off of that question about audience a little bit, Shaun. And when you think about establishing your musical brand, how much did you think about your audience as a part of that? And do you think about them now? Does that influence your approach to branding?
I really only think about myself now. No, I do consider every single person. You know, they say don't listen to the people that say you're so great, because after every show, oh, great, great, great. I don't really care. Or the people that are like, eat glue and die. I hate your music. I don't listen to that either. But I definitely listen to people that I care about. It doesn't have to be singers. It could be choreographers. It could be poets. You do listen to people that you love. My wife Mary's here tonight. I listen to everything she says. But I honestly, I think, to answer your question, hopefully a little bit better, when I started out, I found a lot of people that you might not know who they are, but I lived in Nashville for a while, and there's a lot of singers who would sell out a cruise, and you don't know their names, but 1,000 people would come and watch them because they were in their tribe, like I mentioned earlier. And so they would come and watch them, and I would be like, wow, everybody wants to do that, and I don't even know who that person is, but they had 1,000 people that believed in them. So I think my goal from the beginning when I was branding and trying to find my people, I'm like, I realize, now I'm starting to talk a lot. I realized when you said, I realized at that point that I'm like, that's what I have to do. Those people are going to come and follow me in Michigan if I'm kind to them, if I do what I do, but I talk to them after every single show. That's something that's very important to me. I want to get to know them. I don't want them to be weird fans or something. I just want them to, we're all in it together, sort of. And I thought, I don't have to be super famous. I just have to be true to myself, as you said, and also something where it's like kind to the people that follow me and find that tribe who will come anywhere. And I have only sang in my life since I graduated college simply because of those people. Like nothing to do with me. I'm singing what I want to sing, and apparently there's some people that appreciate it. I also pay people like $50 here and there just to come and see me, but it all works good. So I am now commandeering the microphone. I'm going to hand it back over.
Are we going down the line? Okay. Well, for me, music, no. Music, I give no real consideration to other people outside of myself because, again, it's my expression. Performance, 100%. So for me, in terms of when I'm creating, I have to be, it has to be something that's relevant to me, something that I connect with, something, because again, you know, these things, especially anybody that's been performing music for any period of time, you would like to quietly go onto the internet and scrub everything you did before, whatever you did last, you know what I mean? Because it's not an accurate representation of what your skill set is now. So when you release something out into the world, and that's your thing, your manifesto, your ideology, your thought process, your thing, that thing is going to live out there. And so that's about me. But when you perform, just for me, the idea of a person getting off of their couch, getting dressed, getting a babysitter or whatever, leaving their house, getting into their car, getting into traffic, driving to a place, standing in line to get into a place, to pay their hard-earned money to come see me, that's for them. Because if somebody's willing to do that, to engage with whatever it is you're doing, that person deserves an experience. And for me in particular, on the early side of this, and as a person who was building a hip hop scene here that hadn't really existed to any type of significant degree, you know, there was literally times where you have shows where there's 2 people. And one thing that was just very important for me right from the beginning is those 2 people pay. So those people get the same show that 2,000 people would get, that 200 people would get, 2 million people would get. And that mentality really fueled my performances. So that I cater to people, the music not so much.
I guess in specifically thinking about target audience, I think inherently the music that I sing already has sort of a whole fan base in and of itself. I tend to have to sort of put out the buzzwords in a bio or in a sort of blurb about the show to sort of reference maybe a singer that someone might have a memory of, or sort of what this performance might evoke. And I think target audience wise, I think about people that, you know, already sort of invest in that and what I do. Although I would love to be able to perform in any venues, I've learned pretty quickly that I'm not sort of I don't go over too well in a bar when I'm belting Barbra Streisand at people just trying to drink a beer or have a coffee or something. So I've learned that especially what I do sometimes takes a little extra focus or attention, or just that commitment to kind of be in it together. And I tend to find that a lot already sort of in theaters that have a built-in concert series, or looking at, you know, some of the older music that I sing and already kind of following that fan base of people that click into that. But I don't like to sort of be only specific to one audience either. I think it's important, especially for the music that I sing. I'm really trying to get it out to the younger generations too. So I think especially in the sort of jazz and mid-century pop, that's kind of coming back actually with the Gen Zers, which is wild. But yeah, so ideally you get an audience of all ages, but yeah.
Great. I think you covered this a little bit, but I was curious too, in terms of like, did you look at a niche? Like, where do you fit into the wider market when you were developing a plan for how you were going to establish yourself as musicians, either in the Midwest as the first, you know, one of the first hip hop artists? Or, you know, you chatted a little bit about this, Andrea, but curious maybe from Vaney and Shaun's perspective too, about what about niche? Did that fit into your thoughts at all?
Well, for me, in my instance, there wasn't a whole lot of it here. Obviously it existed and it was a popular genre, so I knew that it would get here. But my experience was probably the definition of rising tide lifts all boats. And sometimes people hear that phrase a lot, but I don't think people really explore the concept of what that means. Is that in order for people to really be interested in your thing, they have to be interested in the thing. And so for me, there's a lot of responsibility in that. With hip hop in particular, that has certain stigmas and perceptions and things of that nature, it was something where everybody had to succeed. So somebody that had nothing to do with me was throwing a show over there and something went wrong, there was a fight or something happened, that made it less likely that I would be able to book the location that we were doing, or that we were going to get the things that we wanted. So there's sometimes in the beginning, part of my branding was literally participating in shows that weren't mine or I weren't being paid. We had a little bit more experience in throwing events and things of that nature. And so being a mentor and helping develop other artists was really important to my success, because sans the industry, sans the environment, sans the scene getting a certain level of success or notoriety or consistency, the likelihood that people were just going to spring to life when I had my singular event in a sea of nothing was zero. It was very low. And so by creating a thing, for instance, even as we talk about our scene right now, something that the Levitt provides that I don't think people think about is that when you think about the first season of the Levitt, probably the first half of the first season, you had all the printouts of the shows, and people would always ask the question, well, who's playing tonight? If you notice, that has transitioned to people go to the Levitt, and then they find out who's playing. They don't ask that question anymore. And that's how you know you're developing a musical culture. In many communities, nobody's trying to find this person playing at this place. They go out to listen to music, and they run into the ability to be introduced into things, into genres, into experiences they might not have seeked out, but they find out that they really enjoy and find some real passion in. And that is truly the magic of music, those social collisions and those opportunities to interact with other people. So same way that the Levitt kind of had to build that trust in folks where, hey, if you come out to a show, you spend your money, you spend your time, you're gonna have a good experience, you're gonna learn some things and maybe catch on to something that you might not have thought you liked as much as you did. And so that was something that we had to be really intentional about building. So when we started is building our own stages, it's renting out an exhibit hall where you don't know if it's going to be 100 people or 1,000. We went into interactions knowing that we were going to lose thousands of dollars because we knew we had to create the environment to build the trust and to build the consistency so people would come out and enjoy live performance music, especially when we were in the low post pump room district. You know what I mean? There was it was barrenness for a while, right? And so you really had to develop those type of opportunities, and now we start to see it become more bolstered where you can catch people going to our wine bar, you can catch people coming to Levitt, or you can catch people going, they don't know what's going to happen, but they know it's going to be something good, and that's a different thing. So that's what we try to create.
Great. Thank you for that. And it's always interesting to, reflect with folks who've been here in the scene for a while and how it's grown, how it's changed. On that same sort of mind frame, I'm wondering if you can reflect a little bit on how maybe your brand has evolved over your musical journey, because I'm assuming it probably has a little bit over the years. Anybody want to take that?
Oh. I'm definitely still figuring out my brand. I'm honing in, and in a theater background, you're sort of told what your brand is. What's your color? What's your type? What's your this? And it kind of gets away from who you are, and kind of stepping away from that sort of audition mentality of, I hope I can fit into this box, kind of getting to choose for myself and looking at my brand as a creative opportunity, not just sort of a mundane business strategy that I have to put together, but to really get creative, to find inspiration, to think of what atmosphere I'm trying to create, sort of picking up different influences from movies, from artists that I love, and so it's really opened my mind up to that once you have your sort of path narrowed in a little bit, it actually you can find inspiration everywhere, and it can keep growing. But I've found that simple is good. I've definitely found that to start off, I thought sort of being a jack of all trades was the best thing, and that ends up being confusing for me and for everyone. And I think having your point of view, and if that is sort of cross-genre, you kind of click into what's familiar, and then you introduce the other genres sort of once people know where sort of your middle ground is. But I've found that simple and concise, and sort of having that narrative already set for yourself is really key.
This timed out well for me because I came up kind of on the precipice of the Renaissance kind of artist, which is kind of my thing. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that today I benefit from the brand that I had been developing for a long time, which is I do what I want. And that's the brand that I developed as a person. And for me, one of the things, again, that I'm most proud of is really three things. Number one, most people don't know what I actually do, which gives me the ability to do what I want. You know, two, no one really knows how much money I have because it doesn't much matter to most conversations that I'm in. And there's no one that you would see me being friends with where it would shock you. And so part of my brand is being able to be in whatever place that I want to be in, doing things that bring me joy or whatever it is. And sometimes it's through music, sometimes that's through facilitating music, sometimes it's teaching, mentoring, or whatever, those type of things. But I never wanted to create a situation where I was being limited by people's perceptions of me, that I was only invited to do things that people thought I did versus people acknowledging that when I'm a part of something, it is enhanced. And thus, if there's something cool happening, people ask me if I want to be a part of it, and I get to decide. That was really important to me. And a lot of artists, I think, live vicariously through their brand. That's not the person that they can authentically hold up day in and day out. So it gives them the opportunity to be someone else, to say things they normally wouldn't say, to do things they normally wouldn't do, to behave in a way that they normally wouldn't behave. That wasn't authentic to me. And so for me, it was developing a brand that was more consistent with who I was, and so that no one was ever disappointed because I didn't have to be on, because I can't really do me wrong. And so that was kind of my mentality, and that's something that I kind of always carried through in terms of my personal brand.
Ditto. You know, we are, I'm in a ridiculous group, an a cappella group, so that's the last thing you do. It's like a vacuum cleaner salesman selling cassettes or something. No one sets out to be like 4 grown men are gonna sing a cappella. So that's already crazy. And then I started a big band, and most people are like, what is big band? They have no idea. It was a music before their time. So I would say the brand hasn't evolved as much as the team. We had times in Tonic Sol-fa, we were asked to add instruments. They're like, oh, you guys are gonna be big. We're gonna tell you to sing country. You can dress like this. You're gonna be the biggest thing ever. And we really had to figure out as a team, what is our brand gonna be? Are we gonna do that? Because we could join the Sing Off at the time, right? It's a TV show. You could do that and, like I said, turn into something maybe you're not. And you could follow that brand to a certain success. I feel like in some ways it wasn't the brand as much, like I said, to me as the team deciding. And I'm part of a team. You guys are obviously different. Sometimes as a solo artist, I'm not really a solo artist. I'm more part of a band. And so that team has evolved. And we did actually things to make sure we had the right team. We went skydiving once to raise money for funds. And one of the guys quit right before and said he was going to be in the skydiving. We didn't actually know it was a test, but right before we got to skydiving, he's like, I don't think I want to do this. And 2 weeks later, he quit. So we're like, ooh, we should do skydiving from now on to decide who's going to be part of this team. But my suggestion from that is to actually look around and say, who is with me in the brand that we're creating? Whether you have one partner, whether it's your husband or wife, whether it's just your mind, right? And so I think the only reason our brand has evolved is because we had a team that evolved before that started. So I could get into a lot of those stories, but that's where I'm going to end right now. So I'll hand it back over to you, and I'll quit talking.
Actually, if I could add to that, I would just well, an interesting challenge for me is that I have a band now, and that is more challenging now that I've been individually branded, because it's my band, right, versus a band together, because I stay constant even though the players change. So the quality can change, the consistency can change. Somebody can just be like, you know what, this week I don't feel like, but your name is on the bill. And managing those things are really different. So when you have people that you're dependent on that are not tethered to your brand, the engagement becomes a little bit different, and that's a specific challenge. So even that part of it, that's one of the things that I think for young artists, sometimes the temptation is to be like, you know, I'm glad it's nice, they're gonna be the Pips. Well, the Pips don't have to show up that day. So, you know what I mean? You gotta be thoughtful about those types of things. And I think sometimes when you're dealing with groups or bands and things of that nature, people don't think about that particular part of it. So that was a really good point.
Yes, the challenges and the joys of collaboration. Yes, we love it. I'm curious to explore other challenges that you think might be there for folks right now who are establishing their musical brand. What do you see as some of the biggest hurdles, challenges for folks who are trying to establish their identity as musical artists?
No chance. I just wanted the mic. No, the biggest impediment I think for anyone in their brand is cowardice. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as an assessment, right? If you lack the ability to overcome fear, it's cowardice by definition. That's just what it is. And I think it's particular right now where so many people get to have opinions about who you are and things of that nature. It is just so tempting to create a avatar or a shield for who it is that you are, as if it can absorb some of that pain. But I promise you, I don't care if they're talking about you specifically or they're talking about the person playing you, it's gonna hurt either way. And that's something that you just have to manage in that piece of it. But I think right now there's just so many clear examples that you have to create something that you can live with. That's why I'm just such a big proponent of that particular part of it. And I think that gets in the way of what people are trying to do. And it just gives you an additional job, because trying to be the person that you are is hard enough. Trying to be that person and someone else, good luck. And so my thing is just, getting over that part of it and putting out something and then releasing things. Every artist is challenged by the release, because it's never the way we want it. You know what I mean? There's one more note, there's one more thing, there's one more whatever. You gotta let that thing fly sometimes. And it just takes a lot of courage to leave it out there, because there's more critics than creators. And so there's so many people who are gonna have an opinion about it that are never gonna do something that opens them up to the same level of scrutiny. And that's a convenient position for them. But that can't be something that prevents you from putting your work out there and allowing it to live and then being able to work off of that. And so that's just one of the things I really encourage a lot of artists to think about.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think especially coming from the theater world where rejection is just daily, you're kind of pounding the pavement, as they say, and you're just constantly in a room and people are on their cell phones and you're trying to sing and get cast in a role, and there's just sort of that constant rejection that you're dealing with. And I think that to sort of bounce back and know that you are your own, you're not trying to fit into something, and at some point you will find your people that believe in that, is to keep that, and during those lows still be creating, still be reaching out to people, and kind of keep going in those the dips and the valleys, to keep pushing through that. I think you're already a successful artist if you can be pushing through that. So I think about that a lot, and I think those are, I agree with the challenges of sort of the perfectionism and the just even sort of the vague social media world is it's easy to just sort of turn it off. But in those moments, I reach out to other people and I get their opinions, and I have sought out career coaches during those low moments. I may not always be able to afford, a weekly session in those moments, but you reach out, you get help, and I think not being embarrassed about that is the most important thing that I've learned.
Yeah, and to me, to add, you both that's perfectly said. I would also say stick to it, because so many times when there was a recession, we're like, how are we going to make this work? I remember when we were doing fairs, we're doing hundreds of fairs around the country, and suddenly all the money dried up for fairs. And we're like, oh, can't do fairs. So we have to figure out some other way to do it. Are we going to quit? We're going to stick to it. Same thing in the pandemic. All artists were suddenly singing from their living room. We're like, let's do a virtual tour. And they're like, what is that? I'm like, I don't know, but we're going to create one. And you make it through. And sometimes I feel like if you're the last person standing, sometimes that matters, because there's so many people that I met, as I said before, when I was living in Nashville, so many people who could sing circles around me, dance, write better, do everything better. But the only reason sometimes we're still doing it is because we were sticking to what we had as our dream, sticking to whatever. And that sounds so cliche, but it's so true. I mean, I can't think of the number of times that, again, the only reason when someone's like, how are you selling out that show? Or how are you, like you guys, how are you doing this? How are you doing that? The only reason is because we stuck to something that we believed in. Even when, as my wife would attest, I doubted myself. I mean, I don't sit there every day and think, oh my gosh, I'm going to make it. It's going to be the greatest thing. But I will say that stick-to-itiveness, is that a word? Thank you. It's a word we've created. I would say that through all of those different trials and tribulations has worked, and that was something to me that would be more important than almost anything else. Certainly more important than talent in my case.
Persistence, authenticity, great messages. I am curious, switching our brain a little bit towards the tools that you utilize to communicate your brand. Are there certain strategies? You've mentioned social media, and there's been a little bit of a sigh with that. What have you utilized to best communicate your brand? What tools, moving to marketing a little bit, have been most effective for you?
I want to do this one. All right, I get to start.
That's what I'm saying.
Social media, obviously very important. Everyone's like, that's the medium that most people find you. Great. For us, because social media decides who's going to listen to you, and they decide, someone else, an algorithm decides who's going to hear your music or your art in whatever form it may be. For us, that direct connection to fans, it has been texting for us, email for us, because when we send out a text, 98% of the people open it as compared to 8% nationwide on an email, or 2% on social media. And social media, I can give you a perfect example. I have a friend in the Twin Cities. Every one of his videos that he puts out, he's a guitarist, he gets probably 2 million plus. But he came to me one day and said, how do I get anybody at my shows? I'm literally doing shows, 6 people are showing up, even though I have 80 million followers on the last, 40 videos. And I think that is a real issue for so many of the people that I talk to. So even though sometimes we have 20,000 people on our texting or 30,000 people on our email from regular touring in our case, that can sell out shows all around the country as compared to 80 million on social media. So sometimes for me, those are the things, any way you can direct connect, because every single artist has a different way. I will never have the same story as you. I can learn from you. Obviously, I'm learning tonight. But every single artist that I've ever met has a different story. So I'm not suggesting everyone go out and get texting and email to people. But for us, that direct connection is why I'm still sitting here 20 years later doing what I like to do.
Yes, all of that. I would say community in all of its forms. So social media, I think people get caught up in that and they get discouraged by that because they think of the platform versus what it serves, which is another form of community that's broader than the one that you have access to. Me coming up in the era that I did, we were in the mall getting kicked out, handing out flyers. We were on the corner waving people down, selling CDs and things of that nature, which honestly really served us a benefit, because that's a challenge that a lot of young artists tend to have right now, is that they struggle to ask. That they allude to it. They're like, come if you want to. That type of thing. And it's a little bit casual versus really having a call to action and really inspiring and motivating people to come and support you, engage you. The other thing that's just a little bit nuanced is that a lot of times what happens is particularly for hip hop artists, they will find a promoter or something like that and they'll want to get on the show. So they'll want to play in front of people without cultivating an audience. So to a degree, you have to be good enough to be in front of someone else's audience and acquire some of those folks. But what tends to happen is for young artists is that the initial attendance that you get, usually there's a surge of energy that is friends or family. And that's when you're not getting paid. So what happens is when you're not being compensated in those first half a dozen shows or whatever, you are maxing out your friends and family. Everybody come, until you can command the type of money that you want to help sustain you, because you're bankable per se. When you're on the bill, people come, which is why people compensate you. Your friends and family has dried up usually around that time because they've seen you 15 different times. So that dries up around the same time that people start to compensate you, and people normally fall off and kind of have a dip there. So the other thing is that people don't transition early enough outside of their friends and family to expand their community. They don't ask a person to bring a person. They don't ask a person to share your music, that type of piece of it. It's not doing all the work yourself. That is, for me, one of the greatest pitfalls people can fall in, to think that you're going to get all of these people here, versus empowering and engaging and tooling the people who are in your community to expand their community. And part of that goes into giving them the courage and inspiring them to do something that might be uncomfortable for them. So if you're the sole person that is going to be tasked with finding all of the people that's going to fill this 1,000-person space, that's going to be challenging. But when you really empower, tool, and equip folks to be able to expand the community, which means they have to expand their own individual community, there's a much greater likelihood that those people are going to engage you. Somebody bringing a friend is always going to be one of the best ways to get people to engage with you.
I think I really tap into as many resources as I can. I really try to get creative with collaborations and reaching out to people that might not be the obvious, maybe not even another artist, but someone sort of behind the scenes. I find that reaching out and collaborating kind of will offer up sort of already maybe someone else's built-in audience, or it is that sort of intimidation of how am I going to fill this space, and when I find collaborating with other organizations and really getting creative about the people that you already know, maybe not even in the arts, but people that are supporters. I find that you can tap into other audiences and build from there. There's already a built-in excitement, and hopefully you pique their interest enough. But I think collaborating and really getting creative about your resources is huge for me.
Thank you. Appreciate all of those great tips. I want to make sure I am opening it up to the audience and that we have some time for some audience questions as well. Does anyone have a question, either online or in person? So the question is, do you do your own marketing? Do you do your own branding, or do you have assistance in that?
I'll go first because mine's short. I now do most of it myself, but I'm already looking around in this room and there are other people here that have helped me so much, even just in the past couple of years here. Bill's son, Shaun, actually just made a video for me. So I really think about getting people's ideas and inspiration and tapping into your resources again, but I definitely have started to do my own marketing, because when I've given it totally over to someone else, I end up not really pleased with that. So I'm learning a lot by doing it, but it's a bit of a commitment. But yes, I ask a lot of questions to people. I get information, but I end up doing most of it myself.
For me, throughout my career, it's been different elements in different stages, but I think everybody should start out doing it themselves. Number one, so that you know that what it takes, and number two, so that you know what you're asking other people to do. One of those things, especially in terms of marketing and things of that nature, it is very difficult to gauge tangible value, especially if you don't understand the lingo. Somebody can give you a spreadsheet with a bunch of pluses and minuses and numbers, and you have no idea what any of that really amounts to, because you don't understand how the sausage is made. So I think it's good for everybody to understand that particular piece of it. The other thing that I would say in terms of marketing and things of that nature is going back to what she was mentioning, which was collaboration. I think that's always one of the best ways to really start marketing and branding and things of that nature. This is one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of performing art schools and things of that nature. There's certain practicalities when you are a starting artist to your resources. You know, this is why some of the best bands and and history come from performing arts, because you got a bunch of kids who are not making money that are uber talented that got together, start playing and doing whatever. Finding those type of people out in the world that can come in for the resources that an artist is likely going to have is very, very low. It is very, very difficult to get that type of talent. So when you can connect with people who are trying to start this marketing component, or trying to start this video component, or trying to start this whatever, and you can get enough people at a similar stage that you are, that all need some level of assistance. They need an artist to film, you need video, they need a portfolio, you need da-da-da-da-da. So when you have shared needs, that's the greatest time where you can get a outweighed value that's outside of the actual resources that you have.
Yeah, I agree with you because when we started, we did every single job, and that has been very helpful, even though I didn't know that from the beginning. I didn't start out saying, I should do every job because this is going to help me. I did not know that. But you would do every job, and throughout our history, it's helped so much because at some point we did have, I can remember, a media company out of New York or Las Vegas, and they were like, well, we're on our list of 50 artists, and you're last, Paul McCartney's first, so really how much are they pitching you or helping you? Not at all. Or they're putting social media posts out, which you've also had that, and it's like, boy, that doesn't say anything about what I'm doing. So you figure out, okay, I've got to do this, like you said. However, at some point, I think you do then want to reach out to collaborators, and in my case, it's people who really get that. It might be in the artistic and marketing side, it's my wife, she's back there. I'm married. Because I realize, okay, she's so creative and she's been to 1,000 shows, so she would be a collaborator for me. I see so many artists who are, like you said, I have a friend who's a country artist, sold out the XL Energy Center a couple of years ago, and now doesn't even know how to book a plane, because as soon as the people left, then he's like, what do I do? And he's a great guy, but he has no idea what to do now. So he's like, should I be a Christian artist? Should I be a country artist? I don't even know. He's just even figuring out, he doesn't even know his brand anymore. And so I see people like that who don't know all those parts, like you just said so eloquently. And to me, I would so suggest that. And then if you do find a collaborator, find one. Because I know a lot of artists who found all they really needed was someone to shoot their videos because they weren't good at it. Or all they really needed was an accountant because they just are like, I know nothing about that. And so for me, you know, in the first collaboration was really like, I need someone who's much more creative on the design side or the marketing side than me. And so that would help propel things so intensely. So for me, just what you guys said, I'm probably just reiterating exactly what you said, not as well, but that's so important to me is like know all those parts, then find that maybe one collaborator rather than a record label is going to save my life, or, you know, a social media company is going to change my fortune. I haven't found that.
Right.
Eduardo. For the online audience, we are talking about what is the process? How do you go about producing versus branding versus marketing? What are the steps?
I would tell you, I don't think brand comes last. I think brand runs alongside all of it. And I think number one, especially right now, because when you come from an era that I come from where like you went into a cave and you formed this pristine, perfect thing, and then you did a reveal, you know, and then everybody got to see the finished product. That's not the game. People want to be a part of your process. They want to be a part of what's happening with you and that type of thing. So I think you build your brand along the way, not to mention you got to be finding out who you are. And let me rephrase that, because I hate when people say they need to find themselves, because you know exactly where you're at. It's just whether or not you like who's there. You know what I mean? And so people have to negotiate and get figured out on that particular piece of it as you're dealing with that. So I think brand runs alongside of it. And then just being good at your craft. There's nothing like, again, stick-to-itiveness is a big component of it. That's in terms of who is successful in the business of it. Because the business is a business of attrition. Is, you know, people come, people go, the thing stays the same, right? You know, it's like being a teacher. The student body stays approximately the same. You know, you might be changing, and that's how the business works. People will replace that all the time. And so and the business is about persistence and things of that nature, but in terms of people engaging, what you do is about authenticity and being good at your craft. And not to mention, like, if you want to be able to exist in your skin and be able to show up in all of the environment. Everybody loves the idea of playing that sold out thing in front of 10,000 people or whatever, until you are at that sold out thing in front of 10,000 people. And then if you don't have the goods, that thing, when they say the truth comes to light, there's just nothing more real than that. And you do not want to be found out on that stage at that moment. So my thing to people is, like, there's nothing that comes in handy more than being dope. Like, just being really good at what you do. So I just tell people, like, full stop on everything until you are really confident in your ability to execute your craft. And then I think you start working at the other things. And when you do that, you can stay in joy longer. You can stay in gratitude longer. You can stay in a healthy relationship with the music longer, because the business will test your love of the thing. And that's any business. It will test your love of the thing, because it will introduce elements that have nothing to do with the thing. And your passion and your connectedness to the thing is going to determine your willingness to do all of those things that have nothing to do with the thing if you want to succeed in the business. So I think the more you are honed in on your craft will give you more capacity to do those other things that are required if you want to be successful in terms of a business.
What are you trying to do?
Yeah, I'm so similar to this. I'm organization and thinking in the, like, really breaking a year down is not my strong suit. And I have to kind of look at the year in these sort of mini arcs, and give myself deadlines. Deadlines so important. Just book something. It doesn't matter what it is, but have something on the books that you can do that music and get to know, even if the marketing isn't perfect for it, you've done it, and then you learn from that, and then, like, these little mini arcs throughout the year, then at the end of that, you can look back and sort of see where you found yourself, and you kind of work with that. But I find deadlines are so important. So I don't know, order-wise, it's hard to say, but I guess the art, then the marketing and the brand alongside it. But I think in order to do that, you have to give yourself deadlines and little markers throughout all of that, so that there's some kind of organization. I also really highly recommend some form of coach. You know, I think having that accountability is so important. And something that I personally really need, because the spreadsheets, I have so many spreadsheets, and I need someone's help to decipher all of that. And just having that accountability helps me get out the material.
If I can just quickly add, because you just made a really good point there. Your music is so personal that sometimes getting outside advice or influence can be difficult on what you need to listen to. That's a big negotiation that you have to make to be able to get somebody that you can trust what they're telling you, because people who aren't ready are really poor judges of whether or not they're ready. And so you need somebody that you can respect that's going to really give you some game on that particular part of it for you to be able to negotiate that piece of it. And the other thing I would just say too is a lot of times people take advantage of the exposure portion of a person's career, but I wouldn't even get into that. You got to get reps. So play where people will let you play, backyard, bar, whatever, play. That's what I would take.
Great. I think we have time for maybe one more question if anyone has one. Yeah. How do you balance the business and the creative creation?
You asked for it.
Oh my gosh. Good, then I don't have to follow you. That is a very good question. I did not go to school for business. I was going to be a lawyer, and I ended up singing a cappella, which is weird. So I had to learn a lot. Surround yourself with people. Definitely, I asked for lots of help. I have a business partner. She's actually in town tonight, who I couldn't have done any of this without. She basically teaches women's conferences and authors, and I just learned from her. We had a long, 3-hour conversation. When I was doing the job, I was advancing the shows, and that's how we met. And I said, can you help me with the Christmas tour? And now we become partners for decades. So that's one of the things, people outside of you. Doing the jobs makes you realize what you can't do. So as soon as you can, find a person who will help for 2 hours here or 5 hours there. I'm not suggesting any of us have the money to go and hire a lawyer and an accountant and a business person. But I also think for me, I never took it seriously as a business for the first part. Again, I wasn't that bright. You guys are much brighter than I think, because when I was first starting, I was like, I'm going to make millions singing a cappella in Ohio. And don't go to Ohio, it always rains. Anyway, but I figured out much later than I should have that this is a job. It's a small business for me. And if I'm going to run a small business, then I have to take business classes. I have to talk to people who run businesses, and I have to learn from them and figure out. Otherwise, it's going to end sooner than later. And I'm never going to be able to follow my artistic goals, because all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be singing and then going, why is there no shows? And why has no one shown up? And why are my taxes not filed for the last 5 years, or whatever it might be? And so I, being part of a team, we all took on different roles of that. I'm not saying that's your experience, but I was like, okay, I'm going to be sort of the business manager, and someone else is going to be, I'm going to do the marketing. So I didn't have to do necessarily every single thing, but I did have to learn how to make this a small business if I wanted to keep doing it forever and ever. Because I'm like, I'm not famous and I'm not the best singer in the room, so I have to learn that other part. And I did not find that balance for a long time. I would just get into the crazy work. I'd do a show and be like, oh my gosh, this is 5% of my life. I wish it was 50%. And then I realized, okay, I'm going to cut that off at some point. I've learned enough about 401ks tonight, so now I'm going to write a song, tomorrow and do that. So it was figuring out, like you said, not necessarily spreadsheets, but figuring out those things and saying, I'm going to be a part business owner, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to wear both those hats. Even though I did not want to be a business owner, I wanted to be an artist so much that I wanted to learn and become that. And again, I've had so many great people. That was not because I was so smart. That was not because I just, watched YouTube videos forever. I literally reached out to people who run small businesses and said, what do I have to learn? What do I got to do? And then I would take certain days in the week. This is a long explanation. And I would say, I'm going to write songs today. I'm going to work on this, whatever, movie soundtrack tomorrow, whatever you're doing, I'm going to do that. But I did also the parts that I didn't like so I could do what I love.
This was part of my master plan, so I can get the mic after him, because I want to say this. To do what he's done doing a cappella and big band is bonkers. Okay, I just want to put this, I want to make sure everybody fully understands what's transpiring here. It is absolutely nuts. Okay, so he's being humble. Thank you. So we're not going to allow that. And I'm probably too bohemian to answer this question, to be honest with you, because for me, like all muscles atrophy. And I just think when it becomes just more business and music, I think it's a bit of a betrayal. I think there's necessary realities to it, but I think every artist laments the moment when it's not about the art. And there's just so many opportunities to jump into that situation. So I'm challenged by that in everything that I do, which is, for me, I had to kind of create a world that allowed me to play in a lot of different places, where sometimes it was this, sometimes it was that, sometimes it was all of those different type of things. Because I'll be honest with you, I spent a couple years while I was performing, working with some promoters, where I ran for a lot of bands, a lot of large bands. So when it came, whether it be hospitality or just getting whatever they needed or just I was connected, so I was able to help a lot in those type of things. So I did that role. And I just talked to so many artists that were in places that I aspired to be that did not enjoy it. And they all warned me. You know what I mean? They were like, I can't make the music I want to make. I can't do this type of thing. So I think the thing I would just offer people is to really define what success is for you, your customized definition of success. What does that mean? And if that's what it, and it's important, because for a lot of people it is. And whatever you do is likely what you're going to get good at. Okay? So if you're trying to make money, you're going to get good at making money. That doesn't mean you're going to get better at making music. That doesn't mean you're going to get better at making connections or relationships or making yourself happy. You'll get good at that. If you engage in music, you'll get good at music. Doesn't necessarily mean you're always going to make a ton of money. I would tell people to be really mindful of what their definition of success is and do that, because that's likely what you'll get good at. The goal for every artist is to do this while we're doing that. And that's really what the gift is. And so work ethic, being willing to do things, being willing to listen to people, being willing to identify talent in other people, being able to deploy it appropriately is going to allow you to build an infrastructure around you that can allow you to make money while you're making music. But, in terms of what is going to be your focus, or that you got to pick.
I don't know if you were saying this more on a day-to-day basis, this sort of business stuff, but I personally have to schedule my office hours. I call them my office hours, because I, first of all, won't do that. And if I do and I'm really in that zone, then it seeps into my creativity and just, it's not good. I get, you get jaded, you're thinking of these emails at 2 a.m. and I really had to get serious about this, because there are times where it just also can be an all-day affair if you're in that business zone, and I don't like to be there all day. It's not good for me, it's not good for my husband, and I think scheduling those earlier in the day, if possible. I really try, when I need to, scheduling the office hours and then just signing off and giving myself that other creative part of the day. I find that separation really helpful. But if you need the inspiration for the business side, again, I think the thinking creatively, thinking outside of the box, who can I reach out to? Who might know this person? Who's a fun collaborator? Or again, building your brand, just being creative about it has always been a nice approach versus a really harsh business strategy. So personally, I have to separate the two just in my scheduling for the day.
Great. Well, I want to give a big thank you to all three of our panelists today for sharing such wonderful insights. Thank you all for being here. I encourage you to continue to be your authentic, persistent selves, collaborative selves. And I want to invite you to come to our next Music Maker Mixer session, which will be Monday, April 15th. we're going to do a session on musical collaborations, and we're going to have a couple different examples of different collabs. Bubba Starts, Gabriel Nightshield are going to be presenting along with Mark Romanowski, Romo, and Joel Shotwell. Both of them have had some very interesting musical collaborations that they have undertaken in the last year, and they will be co-presenting, and we'll have some really great music beforehand too. So please join us April 15th. Thank you.